you can link your AP College Board account, or your College Board account, and Khan Academy, and Khan Academy will personalize lessons to fill in the questions that you missed on the PSAT. I know I set mine to email me with 20 practice problems every day so that I would up my score.
It's the Intersectional Podcast, episode 3. As always, I'm your host, Fahim Kamal.
I'm your other host, Brennan Winchell.
I'm your other host, Lily Remington.
And I'm your final host, Karina Provost.
Yeah, so the topic of today's podcast comes after all of us have taken our AP exams and our IB exams and are done with school. So, reflecting back, we thought it'd be a good idea, as the new school year approaches, to discuss some of the tips we had for studying and test prep, specifically the SAT, the ACT subject test, and normal AP tests. So before we continue, let's say what tests we've gone through. Why don't you start, Lily?
Okay, so I've taken a AP Human Geography, AP World History, AP Language and Composition, AP US History, AP Physics 1, AP Physics 2, AP Psych. I've done the IB Physics SL test, the IB Mathematics SL test, and then I've taken the PSAT twice, the SAT once, the ACT once, and then I've done the SAT subject test in World History.
Round of applause for Lily. Dang, that's crazy.
And I hate standardized testing.
I wasn't gonna list out all of mine, but I guess I've taken the same APs and IBs as Lily, and then the ACT. I haven't taken the SAT yet.
And then, well, I mean, we've all taken basically the same APs, except I'm the only one who hasn't taken AP Psych, I think.
Yeah.
And then, but I've also taken the ACT and the PSAT twice, and we all did, although our IB testing was a little different than it was in previous years because of Miss Corona, we we did take certain formats of IB testing at least.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I've taken basically all of what's been said already, except the fact that I've only taken the PSAT once, and I haven't taken the SAT.
Yeah, I think I'm the only one here who's done SAT subject test and the SAT,
I
right?
mean,
I've
done practice subject tests, full blown practice ones, but I've never done the official one.
Got you.
So I know what they look like.
Mm-hmm.
Because I was gonna take them in March, but then my SAT got canceled the day we got quarantined, because it was the day we got quarantined. Oh yeah, you and I were gonna take it together.
I remember
that. Yeah.
I mean, I'm signed up for the SAT in, August? But I haven't really,
me too.
Is it that much different than the ACT?
I have to sign up for the
honestly,
one in August.
I mean, I would say so because it doesn't have a science section.
Yeah, it doesn't have a science section.
Isn't there a science subject test? There's science-specific subject tests, aren't there?
Yeah, there are science subject tests, but on the actual SAT, there's no science section.
What are
ACT does?
What are the sections?
So on the
just two math
SAT,
and two reading, writing, or English.
Yeah, there's
Oh yeah,
reading, writing, and then math. And then if you do the optional essays, and on the SAT and the ACT, I did both optional essays.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I guess before we go specifically into test prep, we can talk about general studying tips.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if you, I mean, I know y'all use this. This is this is an overpowered software in my opinion. Quizlet helps me so much in day-to-day schooling, just because it's so easy to quickly remember something using it. What are your guys' thoughts on it?
Yeah.
So personally, Quizlet's not my favorite, and I use Quizlet exclusively for vocab. I will admit that Quizlet's vocab things are the only reason I passed my AP World Final, but I think that if it's for anything other than strict vocabulary, I can't use Quizlet.
Yeah, I could agree with that. Like Quizlet for me is only really useful in like subjects where like there's a lot of like vocab, so like history especially. Other than that though, I usually like watch videos on stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I
Mm.
think history is one of the subjects that it's good for. Also, like psych was pretty useful having
Oh yeah,
Quizlet.
yeah,
Yeah, it can be useful in any subject, I think, when like it's regarding vocab.
Mhm.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
Just
I've
because like
I
it's so easy to use in that sense.
mm-hmm.
I find it really interesting because I'm like, I don't really use Quizlet because personally for me, I need to write down the information, so I write it on a physical like index card. Because if I'm using Quizlet or something, like I can just copy and paste the definition and the word, and or like just I don't necessarily have to think so much about it. Whereas like, and I know it doesn't really matter when you're actually writing it, but just like, I don't know, the idea of physically writing it, I just feel
Mm-hmm.
like I remember it more.
It's
So I don't
been
really use Quizlet.
Yeah, it's been shown to like help you remember things better. I just don't have the like will to do that. I usually just use Quizlets people already made, and I just use that to study.
Yeah,
I've
like
made a couple of my own Quizlets, but not a lot.
building on what Brandon was just saying, like I think although that's the disadvantage in Quizlet in that like you don't write it and you don't get those benefits of writing it, like the ability just to pull it up on your phone and basically do it
Yeah.
anywhere, like I think that's unrivaled to
Wait,
actual
so
Yeah.
flashcards.
Mm-hmm.
so would you guys say that you're more of like kinesthetic learners then?
In some sense, yeah, I would say that.
For me, like I definitely have to write things down to remember it. Like the kids that I see in class who just like they don't have to write like take notes or anything, but they still can like remember and retain the information. Like I could never. I have to write it down like
Mhm.
multiple times to remember it.
So like I personally am like a solitary oral visual learner, so like I learn better on my own with audio and visual cues because of like photographic memory patterns. Um but I think that like my two like biggest helpers for studying were crash course videos.
Yes.
I think
Those are
crash
helpful.
course videos are personally amazing because my brain works at very high speeds, and the speed at which like crash course helped me like learn and memorize things was very very helpful for me, especially in history classes. But also, if you don't learn that fast, one thing I like about like YouTube is that you can slow down videos, and you can also take notes on those to help you like round out your like knowledge of things. And then Khan Academy. I know a lot
Yes.
of people bash Khan Academy for studying, but I love it because you can pick the class you're in, take the unit you're on, and you can literally go through video lessons that give you like practice problem examples, and then they give you quiz practice problems. Like it helps you measure your progress so you really know when you're ready to test. And they have SAT practice on Khan Academy.
Yes. I was gonna say
Mm-hmm.
the SAT practice on Khan Academy is the only way that I studied for the PSAT and the SAT, and it's just like super helpful because it's formatted in the exact same way, and then you can take full length practice tests and they're timed and everything. So I just think it's like really beneficial, at least for the SAT.
Yeah, it's. I think it's a good resource. I probably don't use it as much as I should. Usually when I like a test is coming up, like for the ACT, I had a prep book and I would like go through that, take the quizzes. I didn't even look through everything because some of the stuff I felt like I already knew. But usually when I'm preparing for like a test in a specific like subject, like not even like big tests like standardized ones, I usually just like watch YouTube videos related to the subjects, and I think that helps me because I think I'm more like visual.
Right.
Also, I think it's like a lot of the reasons why I think we're good at testing is because I think like we're more cognizant of like and honest like with what we know. You know what I mean? Like knowing what you
Mm-hmm.
know and like from there moving on to what you have to study is like pretty powerful.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I think study guides that teachers give are so good because
Right.
like you use a study guide, you see what you know, and then you just fix it after that.
Yeah.
That reminds me, well, so like for people who are like social learners, I know that study groups are really helpful. I personally don't do study groups because I think I get distracted around people more easily. But like when you have like three or four people with the same study guide and you can all work through it together or explain concepts that you know but the other person doesn't, like the really good space to bounce ideas off of one another if you and those people are really good at focusing.
Yeah, on
Yeah.
study groups, like I feel like it's not as helpful on things like just simple rehearsal. Like I don't think you would need a study group for that. But like in terms of like when we were studying for math, like when we didn't know the answer to a problem, like we all try to fix it
Oh yeah.
together. And so that like I feel like it's especially helpful for that.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, one thing, like before we move on from the SAT prep on Khan Academy, there was one thing I remembered that we didn't mention, was that once you take the PSAT, like the practice SAT, you can link your AP College Board account or just your College Board account and Khan Academy, and Khan Academy will personalize lessons to fill in the questions that
Yeah.
you missed on the PSAT. I know I set mine to email me with 20 practice problems every day so that I would up my score. Because the first time I took it was as a freshman, so I got really bad score. Like I got an 1100 when I was a freshman, which is not good. But then after doing that every day and then retaking the PSAT as a junior, I had bumped my score up to like a 1320. So I think that's really helpful for like bridging that gap.
I didn't know that.
We can.
All right, so like moving on to test prep. What were you gonna say, Lily?
I think the most important thing to do is just take practice test after practice test after practice test, because once you know the information, like just reading this stuff over and over again really isn't going to do that much for you. I think it's about getting in the mindset of being like understanding how the test is formatted and the time limits and just the types of questions that they ask. So if you can find a relatively like accurate practice test and multiple of them, I just think like that's the most valuable thing. Because you can watch all the crash course videos, but if you never take a practice test, you're never going to understand how the test is structured. And so I just think that's like the most, like if somebody can only do one thing to study, it's just take practice tests.
I honestly couldn't agree with you more, because one of like the hardest things to adjust to on all standardized testing is timing.
Yeah.
Like it is so hard to get yourself to answer so many questions in a specific amount of time. Like if you think about the English section on the ACT, you have to answer 75 questions in what was it, 40 minutes?
Yeah, something like that.
So like you have to learn how to like time your reading, time your answers, and you really have to learn the niche tricks and how to get yourself on pace. And you can still get it, like if you're the kind of person who stresses under pressure or isn't like the best test taker, you can still get a good score even if you don't answer those last 3 or 4 questions.
Yeah. I also think like part of the reason practice tests are so valuable is because it's like I feel like they're more engaging than like watching videos sometimes, because sometimes I'll be like trying to study for something and then I'll be watching the video and then I'm like, well, what just happened? Like especially with Crash Course, because he goes so fast, or they go so fast because there's like 2 of them, but I just like zone out and then I have to end up going back like 3 minutes and I just feel like I'm wasting my time.
Right, so like I actually have my ACT prep book with me. I think one of the important things about test prep is like goal setting. So the thing about most standardized tests is that you can take them multiple times, and they don't usually tell you that. Like a lot of like test companies won't stress the fact that you can take them multiple times. So don't like stress yourself out too much. Like if it's your first time taking it, like you've taken practice exams and whatnot, but if it's your first time taking the official one, do your best and pace yourself, because it's important to remember that you're gonna have other chances to take it. And I think actually the earlier you take it, the better.
Yeah, I agree.
Because you get a baseline for what you already know.
Mhm.
Yeah, on top of, I think all those things were important, but I think like it's understated. Like I think you guys understated YouTube videos because just like I think you need to have all these elements in order to have like the perfect test strategy. Because like you can't rely solely on YouTube videos, but I think YouTube
Yeah.
videos are definitely helpful for like the little tricks or the like what I used to do. There was like this one YouTube channel which like had a someone take an actual ACT test and then record it so it showed you how like optimally one should take the test. And so like
Mhm.
watching those videos were like really helpful for me, especially seeing how
Right.
like the person's strategy differed from mine.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
As well as that, like I think I don't know if you guys have done this, but like I had like a document on my computer which was basically my review journal, and that's where like I like documented every single question I got wrong and had to like drill myself so like I
Mm.
wouldn't get those specific questions wrong again. Like
I
I'd have
never
to.
thought to do that.
Yeah. It was really helpful for me because like you could see your score improving as you're like taking all these drills, because like on the top of my document I like had like which practice test it was, what I got on that one. And
Right.
I think the emphasis really in this strategy is making sure that you recognize why you made that mistake and then figuring out what the answer was and how you could prevent that mistake in the future. That kind of
Yeah.
analysis is like crazy important when you're trying to do
Oh,
any
for sure, for sure, for
test
sure.
prep.
Yeah, I most definitely agree. Like, if you're taking these practice tests and then you grade them, and then the ones that you get wrong, you're just like, okay, and you don't even look at them, or you're like, oh, yeah, it was just a stupid mistake. I get it now. It's like, even still, you just messed up like the one time, so you should still like go back and do different problems in the same style to make sure that like you truly do understand, because I feel like so many times people are just like, "Oh, I just like made this stupid small mistake, so it's fine. I don't need to look back over it." But who's to say that if you don't drill it multiple times, you won't keep making that stupid mistake because you'll just forget.
And
Mm-hmm.
then there's one thing I want to bring up for okay, so I know that a couple of us, not to call Fahim out or anything, but will bash on paying attention to like all of the grammar rules they drill into you over and over again in English classes. Those are really important for standardized testing. Like, pay attention to the kind of niche grammar rules that your English teachers will drill into you, because like the participles and the past present tense or perfect present or whatever they teach you, because they all have patterns to them. The ACT has patterns to it. The SAT has patterns to it. When you know how to pick up on those specific English patterns, you can breeze through the 75 English questions. Like, punctuation is something they harp on a lot because they stop. I don't know if you guys noticed this, but they kind of stop teaching you about punctuation in high school. Like, they think you
Just
know it
stop like
all
after
already.
fifth grade. Like yeah,
Yeah,
no.
Yeah.
exactly. So like do a brief study session, like like refresh your memory on semicolons and colons and the Oxford comma. Use your commas correctly, people.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah, no, definitely. I'd have to. No, actually, I agree with you all on that. Like, I think learning the grammar rules are definitely important. And I used to have to watch a lot of videos on the grammar videos, and videos on the grammar is like really helpful because they explain everything, and they show you like what kind of tenses there are. That's definitely an area where I would suggest watching some videos.
And also, like, I just think it's like important to note that, so much of the time people are like they're so used to just speaking everyday language, and when people speak every day, we're not always using like the most correct grammar, but then when they take the test, they're like, "Oh, this is how I would say it." But
Mhm.
sometimes that's not always correct. And because it's not how they would say it, they think it's weird, but it's actually the right way. So I think it is important to look at those things.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely don't think I talk very like professionally, or like I just seem like really casual. but like I don't know if this is just for me, but for me it's easy to transition between like academic and casual like language, and I feel like if it's hard for like you guys like trying to take these like standardized tests, I feel like it's something you should like look into.
Like, yeah, see, I don't have that problem as much. I know I have a tendency to speak very formally, so much so that the three of you were very surprised the first time I spoke casually to you all. But yeah, that's a really good point, Brandon.
Also, it's like this is another reason why like drilling the tests is so important and doing the practice tests are important, because like oftentimes there's like a lot of idioms on the reading section that you just don't know them unless you see them, right?
The
so
reading section,
once you drill them, you could like find out some of the patterns, just learn more.
I'm gonna take a look in my prep book and see one of the like what the tips they stress in here are.
Like real
like
quick,
if there's anything we're missing.
Yeah, real quick, I just want everyone to know reading is my nemesis. Like every section on the ACT did really well on. I got a 35 on writing, a 35 on math, and a 36 on science. And I think on reading I got like a 26. So
yep.
Reading is just hard for me.
Opposite of what I did. I did 36 on reading and then 35 on English. Yeah. 36 on reading, 36 on science, 35 on English, and then 28 on math, which is somehow I don't know how that averages out to a 34, but it did.
Yeah, no, it's like important to make sure you know like how well you're gonna do on like each section. And for me, I like knew reading was probably gonna be my weakest like score, but I probably didn't do too much to like change it. But I was just like, how do you study for reading? And I guess that's something I like still struggle with. I think it's just hard for me to like focus on standardized testing.
Yeah.
And I'm not like I probably am not qualified to speak on how to do it, just like due to the fact that I'm not good at it, and I don't know like even with like other tests.
Yeah.
I mean, just in general, I think people always forget on like reading sections that you can take notes or underline certain things, and like I'm not necessarily the most perfect when it comes to this, because usually reading is in the beginning, and so I'm like kind of stressed out, and so like the first passage I end up kind of doing not that great on.
Right.
But because I've like done so many practice tests and I'm so used to the time, I tend to have leftover time, and then I'll go back to the first one when I was kind of nervous and wasn't really like, when I was reading the passage I was just thinking, oh my god, like this is the actual test, and not necessarily thinking of the information. But I still try to like underline important things. And I think in each different type of reading passage, because there are different kinds and there are always like the same 4 different kinds.
Yeah.
It's not like there's usually 2 of some, like usually every test has the same 4.
Right.
Like there's different strategies for each passage. And I think like learning what each of the things to look for are is like very important. Yeah. Like in the more narrative, you should look for more like character interaction, whereas in the science it's more like the actual information or the main topic.
Yeah, the science reading comprehension passage, like in the reading section, the science one, it's always last, and I know it's always last, but it always throws me off, because I'm like, yes, narrative, poetry, nonfiction, science?
Yeah, it is a little odd. I think one of the things that was so hard for me though this year, especially because like the ACT, if you guys don't know, is administered by like the state of Nevada, so we're like required to take it for our diploma, and it was online, so that was part of the reason I think the reading was so hard, because reading online I feel like is a little bit harder to like stay focused on, and you can't take notes. And the complete opposite for like what Lily was talking about happened to me. I had like no time left. Like literally on the last question, I probably like flipped to it, or not flipped. I like clicked, whatever terminology, doesn't matter. But I had like 10 seconds left to answer it, so I had to like rush, and like that question I had to basically guess. Like I run out of time on that section just like due to the fact that I lose focus so much.
Yeah, so, losing the focus. Sorry,
no,
I just want to get this one thing in. I think a lot on the reading section, like a lot of the strategy has to like focus on your energy. Like I like skipped certain passages because I'm like, I am not reading this. This is the most boring thing I've seen in my life. I'm gonna skip it. and then get to something that I'm interested
Once
about.
I'm in the groove.
Yeah. And then the thing is, like, you have to make the passages interesting to yourself or like memorable to yourself so you remember them. So it's easier to
Yeah.
answer the questions.
Okay, I found the 4 passage types. I didn't mean poetry, I meant humanities.
I mean,
Yeah,
Poetry is a kind of
repeat them.
humanities.
Yeah. So you've got, like, you have what Lily talked about, which is narrative fiction. You've got the humanities passage, which is typically, like, a passage that's adapted from, like, a humanities book or article. You've got the science passage, and then you have the straight-up literature passage.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, what I was going to get at a second ago was that, so I opened my 2020 ACT prep book and my 2019 SAT prep book, because I have both. For some reason, they were still right next to me. But they have 2 different approaches to the reading section, just like while we're on that topic, So the the ACT prep book has a 6-step approach specifically for the reading. So, I think that if you find yourself looking specifically for, like, steps to take or routes to kind of look at how to attack the reading section, I think these kind of like prep books will help, because they give you like 5 to 6 steps. Like, the first is preview, read the blurb, and map the questions. So, like, I think in the reading section, it's always helpful to read the questions first. Like, you have to know what you're looking for.
There's a lot of different strategies, and like I wouldn't say there's like one good strategy, but what I would say is you should probably just check, the ones that you think you'd be most successful with, and even some of the ones that you're not really accustomed to, just to see if it's better for you after, when you score it and see the actual results.
Right.
Yeah, there's different methods. Like, some people read the questions first. Some people look at like the specific questions and then the general questions, especially on the SAT. So it's like you just gotta poke and prod through every type of strategy to understand. And I like how Karina mentioned that the prep books, like the Princeton prep books, like all those prep books are good for getting those strategies out.
And then, like it says, like the last thing it says here for the 6-step basic approach, give yourself up to 12 minutes. Like, I don't think you need to study a whole reading section, like a whole 4 passages at a time. Like, take them one at a time so you know how to approach them one at a time when you take the actual test.
Yeah. When I would do specifically the narrative passage, and then specifically work on science, and then specifically work on humanities, etc. And then I would, after I felt like I had all of them at an equal standing, then I would just do a whole reading practice, and then I would do separately later, like a whole science, and then a whole math thing, like each element separately but still in the time. And then, like, the weekend or during the week before I would take the test, I would try to take 1 or 2 full-length tests, like no stopping, and like I think that helped me really a lot with like timing.
So the next thing I kind of wanted to bring up is something that people can do, like, if they have the option to, and like if it's not an option for you or your family, like, don't stress it. There are tons of other ways to prepare and study for these tests. Like, for example, in our state, the ACT gives our English teachers a practice booklet that they give to us so that you can practice and study. But like, one of the other options for studying is paid courses. So, like, this is one of the things that the SAT and ACT take into account as, like, score disparities. But you have paid courses. So I know that the Princeton Review, which makes pretty much it's the main source of prep books for AP and standardized testing. I don't know if Princeton Review does IB prep books. I don't think they do.
No, I don't think so.
But they
I think
definitely
Barron's does.
Right. But they definitely have prep books for nearly every AP course, and for the ACT and the SAT and the PSAT, on top of the fact that they offer a course you can take online. There's another one that I personally took because the Princeton Review is rather expensive, was the Hacking the ACT, which is a group that happens to run ACT boot camps at specific schools. So I know that me, Lily, and Fahim all did a weekend course, like a 3-day course for the ACT at our school. It was a weekend and it was surprisingly fun. But it really helped because I know I personally hadn't seen the ACT yet, and our ACT was in about like 20 days, 15 days. And I hadn't seen a full ACT yet, but they broke down each section and they taught us all of the patterns and the things that we needed to know. So like if it's an option for you, I strongly recommend like trying to take a course and have somebody who scored high teach you the tricks.
I'd say that was pretty helpful. Like I think me and
Mhm.
Lily like went up like 3 to 4 points each.
I
Would
went
you
up
say?
5 points, yeah.
Yeah, like it was crazy helpful. And
Mhm.
like going in, I was kind of like bashing it. I wasn't like trying to be in there. I was kind of rebelling against my parents. I'm like, I can do it, right? But no, after it was pretty helpful, and I'm glad I did it.
Yeah, like, because I remember on the first day when we took the full-length practice exam, I did not score well on the science, like, at all.
Yeah.
But on the last day, when we took the full-length practice exam, I got a 36 on the science, and then I got a 36 on the science on the official test, and I was like, it blew my mind how much it helped me.
Yeah, I think learning the material in the context of, like, if you need to review material, reviewing it and learning it in the context of how the test asks you the questions is important because, you know, like, for example, for the science ACT section, you don't need to go through and review the entire, like, Krebs cycle, the process of photosynthesis, etc. Like, you just need to learn, here's how the questions are asked, here's how to find the information, or here's how the math questions tend to be structured and things to look out for, so you can find, like, the answers in the most, like, efficient and correct way possible.
Mhm.
Or here's how to read the passages, not just this, like, you need to know, here's a bunch of information you need to know and make sure you remember from your entire high school career. Here's how you apply that information to the test so that you can get, like, the best score you can.
Like in terms of boot camps, I think those are especially helpful for like the SAT and the ACT. But I don't even know if these exist, right? But if they do exist, I would not recommend going for a boot camp for like AP tests. I think the books, like the Princeton books, and also like if you have like a bomb teacher, some of the materials they give are just like so much better to use,
Right.
and you'll be fine for the AP test with those.
Like, our AP
Yeah.
Worlds teacher made sure we were so prepared for that test. It was incredible. Like, I was terrified because AP World was my first AP exam, and she made sure that we did everything in our power. Like, even if you procrastinated or slacked off in studying, she did everything in her power to make sure we had all the materials to still pass that test.
Yeah, like, I agree. If you can only afford to get, like, a tutor or a class or some more expensive test prep item, for one thing, it would be the SAT and the ACT, and not necessarily because the SAT and the ACT hold more weight in terms of college, while, yes, that is one of the factors, but also just because I feel like AP, like, I've really only ever in the past used crash course videos, like my own homemade flashcards and the Princeton review book, and, like, I've gotten, like, 5s and, like, passing scores, so, like, I don't think it's necessary to buy or pay for, like, a tutor just for the AP test.
Do we want to talk about, like, just general study tips for how to, like, get through your classes and, like, having weekly unit tests and stuff like that? Because I know that can also be helpful, and some of those things also
Yeah.
cross-apply to test prep.
Yeah.
The reason I bring it up, though, is because one thing that our AP World / TOK teacher also stressed with us was not to do everything at once. Like, take
Mhm.
breaks. I can't remember the exact
Yeah.
time frame she gave us, but it was like, study for so many minutes, break for so many minutes. And, like, during that
Mhm.
break, get, like, a snack. Like, don't go on your phone, don't start watching a YouTube video, because we all know that just spirals into watching 10 more.
Yeah, so I actually do that just when I generally am doing my homework, and especially during test prep time. It's called, like, officially called, like, the Pomodoro method. And there's different, like, ways to do it, but the way that I do it is, like, study for, like, 20 or 30 minutes or something, and then take, like, a 5 or 10-minute break, and do that, like, 4 times, and then take, like, a 30-minute or, like, an hour-long break. But most of the time, by the time I've done it, like, 3 or 4 times, I'm done with all that I had set planned for the day. So, like,
Yeah.
I think taking breaks is, like, one of the most important things to just,
Right.
like, give your mind a rest even for a short time.
And it's like taking breaks is a form of a reward system. So I know
Mhm.
that I think it was 2018 that Cornell University published a news article about how, like, when you reward yourself, it's like an immediate reward after studying or while doing things. It can boost intrinsic motivation to actually get work done. So even though, like, rewarding yourself is a kind of extrinsic motivation, just like encourages you to keep going and push through things, but, like, as you continue to do that, you'll know that, like, internally, that you are working for that kind of reward. Like, if you give somebody a bonus for working on something rather than waiting till the end, it'll increase your interest and enjoyment in actually doing the thing. So you can train your brain to enjoy studying and enjoy working for something.
Yeah, I wouldn't sleep on Pomodoro because, like, it's so helpful when you're just, like, not feeling motivated to go through those motions. And like I feel like there's a line with Pomodoro though. Like I don't know if it's like probably the optimal for every time you study. Like sometimes people just
Yeah.
get into a grind and like
Yeah.
they're able to just like they're in this mode, like this state of flow where they're just like able to do it. So like I would say like it depends on how you're feeling in terms of your motivation. If it's something that you're not really into, Pomodoro is your move. If it's something you're really passionate about, go ahead and just go with the flow.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was just gonna say, actually, was sometimes I get into, like, I just need the first, like, 5 minutes or 10 minutes, and then I get in a groove, and then, like, I don't need to take a break. So yeah, you you can still break, but sometimes that breaks your productivity. You just need, like, the motivation the first 5 minutes to get started and get going. So I, like, on and off use it, but I do think that there's, like, if you're not focused after studying for a certain point, like, just take a break. Like, nobody says that you have to sit there and read a textbook for, like, 4 hours straight to study for your test, because that's actually probably worse in the long run than studying for 4 hours but you've taken multiple breaks.
Also, it's really important to like minimize your distractions when you're studying and using those methods. Like I would usually put my phone in like a drawer far away. So like I would like there's two things. One, it's not easy to grab, and two, you don't hear notifications, so your like
Yeah.
mind doesn't like shift focus
Oh,
instantly.
my phone's always on silent anyway. Good luck
Yeah.
contacting me if I'm not looking at it.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
like that too, but like the thing that like even vibrations kind of like mess me up. Like if I hear my phone vibrating, like it's over.
Oh yeah, well see, okay, so here's my thing with it. So I turn my phone over, like, face down on my desk so that I can't see the screen light up. But because of my headset, and I usually have music playing when I study because that just helps me focus. Like I don't listen to my usual, like, jam session music. I'll listen to classical music when I study. That helps, by the way. That is psychologically proven that classical music helps your brain focus. Fun fact.
Yeah, on the music thing, now that you just brought it up, I feel
Yeah.
like a lot of people think they're like blasting music. It's not blasting music. It's having it at like a low volume so as not to like interrupt you, but just be in the background because it's nice to have something to hear. That's why a lot of people like working in coffee shops or at libraries because the background like white noise or whatever is just helpful.
Yeah, so like that, I mean, I know a lot of people make fun of it, but that is exactly why people on YouTube make like 1 hour, 2 hour long videos of lo-fi beats to study to, because it's
Chilled cow.
it is it's chill, it's low, it's something that doesn't divert your focus from what you're actually trying to do. It's white noise. That's all it is. It's white noise. Like if you're listening to some I don't want to like bash on people's music taste, but if you're listening to like, you know, some of that popular like mumble rap, I'm not hip on like popular music. I'm sorry, but that's not going to help you focus. Like, it's not the kind of white noise that you need to study. It's something that you enjoy. Sure, it can make the experience less frustrating, but it's more of break music, not study music.
Yeah, and the human brain focuses on things that are like more complex. So if you're listening to a song, especially a song that has like words, and especially words in a language that you speak, your brain will focus on that, one, because it'll think it's like more interesting, and two, because it's like, well, it's complex enough for your brain to like focus on it, and then you just think it's more interesting than reviewing your material, whereas the lo-fi or the classical stuff tends to be more repetitive. It has its own motifs and themes that kind of repeat, so you don't have to focus on it that much. So the more complex thing is what you're studying, and so you will pay more attention to it.
You have to definitely avoid anything with lyrics in it. Once it has lyrics in it, it's over. You're just gonna pay attention to that. And like, you gotta make sure like when you're listening to music while you're studying, like you're actually like, you have to be consciously aware that you're like reading and comprehending whatever you're doing, and not just like saying it, because there's two different things, right? If you're just saying it, you're not learning anything. But if you're consciously doing it and it's like a good aid in the background, I can see it being helpful.
Oh, also, so I like classical music by itself because I used to play piano, but if that's not like your vibe or your jam, or if it's not lo-fi beats or whatever it is that is calm, there are groups on YouTube and Spotify that have classical rock music, so it's still not lyrics, but it is classical pieces on like guitar, and if you turn the volume down a little bit, it actually helps a lot if that's not kind of your... If like classical music on its own or lo-fi beats on their own isn't something that you would generally enjoy, I think that the kind of alternative that is a bit heavier might be nice.
I don't know if I'm weird or if it's just like, if it's actually helpful, but like if you can't like listen to music, sometimes I like listen to rain. Like very turned down
rain sounds on Spotify.
Yeah.
I think that's just because of where we live. Like we don't
get
rain here, and
no, but I listen to rain sometimes when I'm studying. It also helps.
Yeah, I listen to those, like, I don't know if you guys have seen them on YouTube, those like videos with like the person that looks like he's like transcending, and it's like 432 hertz.
Oh yeah,
like,
yeah.
And it's like, it's not like a certain like musical piece. It's just like weird like white noise that has like some like flow to it, but it's just like, it's kind of like the rain in that it's just random, but it like it could help you focus.
Don't listen to rain with thunder though.
No.
That's too scary.
That's not even that. It's just like, you just get off your vibe.
Yeah, just like spa music, like 10 hours spa music, 10 hours Zen yoga music, like something like that. Even if you have to look up something really weird, try it.
If you bump to spa music, then maybe you listen to something else so that you don't get too bumped.
That might be your downfall. This spa music goes too hard, bro.
You gotta get the cucumbers over the eyes.
Yeah.
That's funny. That's funny. What I was gonna say is, keeping in mind all of what we said, you have to make sure you distribute your studying too. Like, I'm bad at this, like, but it's like psychologically found that like the spacing of how you you study is important.
You're bad at
distributed practice.
I am a little bad at
Yeah, that is very true. He's not good at distributing his study time. He's always like studying at the last minute. Worse than any of us.
Well, we've all got a little bit of procrastination in our souls.
Sometimes the kids that procrastinate and then get super stressed, like, okay, if you're prone to procrastination and you've already procrastinated up to this point, like, there's no use in trying to learn all the material a week before, a night before. Once again, this just goes back to the take a practice test and understand the format. You can't, for example, like with the SAT, ACT, like bigger tests that test your knowledge from a long period of time rather than just like an AP class, like, you can't learn 10 years, 11 years, 12 years worth of material overnight you just have to understand the format and the timing of the test. Like, if you can only do one thing and you've already procrastinated, like, just understand the timing and the format.
Mm-hmm.
TLDR, don't procrastinate on the standardized tests. Maybe on school exams it's fine.
I don't know if it's fine, but
Not preferable.
Yeah.
Just not
I don't know.
life ending.
well, okay, so one of the things, and I'm going to say that it is scientific fact, even though it is definitely not, it might just be our own teachers, but teachers like to make tests and end of units on Fridays. There have been times where in our, 6 class a day schedule, where I have had 4 exams on a single Friday.
Yeah.
Teachers will usually tell you in advance when you have unit exams. So if they give you, an RA push class, they gave us packets, at the beginning of the unit for us to fill out as we go and as we read the textbook and as they give us lectures. Yeah, I know not all of us read the textbook, but...
Hey, I did.
I'm with you, Lily. But they give you those things
Except Brandon.
so that... They give you those things so that you can pace yourself and follow along and that you can study those materials at the end. Not so that you can fill them out the night before, so that you can study them before the exam. Use those things to your advantage. Spread your studying out and do not cram.
See, this is my philosophy though. I feel like if you're good at procrastinating certain things, there's levels to this. You can procrastinate certain things and be fine with it. And if you're good at that, power to you, homie. Do it. I'm encouraging you to do it. If it's not a big thing, and if your procrastinating abilities there.
I don't condone your opinion fully, but I get what you're saying, because you do it a lot and you seem pretty good at it. So.
Oh yeah, I
it's
used
not
to
for
get
everyone,
really good at. No, I used to be really, really good at procrastinating. It was unhealthy. There have been times where I have finished my debate cases after coming home from speech tournament on Friday. I was up until 2 in the morning.
See, this is the thing though. I think that's why being cognizant of your ability is so important in studying, because understanding where you are even in procrastinating could be so helpful.
Well, psychologically, I know why I procrastinate. It's really it's really evident why. It's because I quote unquote excelled at school from when I was kindergarten to middle school, and then when things got really hard, it was oh yeah, I know what I'm doing. I don't need to put in extra time or effort for this. Psh, last minute work, here I come. But you don't learn as much that way, you know?
Yeah, and you won't retain it when you need it for the big exams.
This is maybe a critique for schooling in general, but I feel like in AP classes, I feel like doing the classwork and studying for the exam are two different things. I'm more I wouldn't procrastinate on the actual AP exam, but I would on a classwork thing.
Well, I mean, it's one thing to procrastinate on an essay versus procrastinate on studying for the big test or a test.
Well, this concludes part 1 of our ongoing discussion on IB, AP, and general studying tips.
Don't forget to check out our Instagram and Twitter at The Intersectional Podcast, or our Spotify and YouTube channel to see where we upload our episodes. And you can check out our website or email us if you have any questions about the podcast itself or our experiences with test prep in high school. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you.